back. A study commissioned by MicroFinance South Africa suggests the current caps on interest rates and fees within the credit provider sector are in fact acting as a form of price control. It says there are negative impacts for both credit providers and borrowers. Well, Rob Jeffery is the MD and a senior economist at Econometrix and undertook the study. He joins me now. Rob, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, please do.
Let's start with the basics. How would lending or allowing lenders to increase their interest rates and fees better the credit situation we find ourselves in?
Well, it's an interesting question. One's got to go back to the basics of the situation, and that we find ourselves in an economy where there are a number of people who are over-indebted. If you go into the numbers, the service payments to disposable income have risen from about 45–50% to 70%. I know they're dropping, but once interest rates actually start to rise again, slower increases in salaries and remuneration, clearly there are a number of problems that would rise. The number of impaired records has risen to something like 9.9 million. That is 27%, that approximately 1 in 4 accounts are actually impaired. Now, one of the impacts of a price control on credit is that, first of all, it increases, it reduces competition, reduces access to credit, and it fosters the illegal economy. So by increasing the interest rate caps, now that doesn't mean increasing interest rates, it would increase competition, would allow proper pricing for risk, and at the end of the day would allow access to credit for those people who cannot get credit at the present time at a reasonable rate. One thing that has happened recently is because of interest rate caps, possibly one of the reasons, that there's a cross-selling of products, and you get life products being sold in order to boost returns, which actually increases the cost of credit for certain providers.
Yeah. You mentioned a positive effect on curbing the use of illegal microlenders that this move could do. But do we know how much money is actually borrowed through illegal microlenders?
No, one does not. But what one does know is that everybody in this economy pays for slow payment and bad debts. Effectively, what happens if people do not pay or they pay slowly, you can go into the numbers, you'll find that slow payments alone cost this country something like 9 billion rand in GDP per annum and possibly cost 72,000 jobs. One of the things that we looked at was emolument attachment orders. If you ban those and foster a society of non-payment, repayment of debt, one could actually arise as a situation where that alone might cost an extra 3 or 4 billion in GDP and another 20,000 jobs. Effectively, what I'm trying to say, and what our study has concluded, if you increase the interest rate caps, you will allow greater competition, greater access to credit, and reduce the amount that is lent in the illegal market. Now, those, I think, are and reduce the amount of cross-selling of products. I think those are very important impacts that could positively impact economic growth in this economy.
It does suggest to me, the study, though, that ultimately it's the borrowers that need to take responsibility here. But we've also undoubtedly cannot ignore the fact that there's been reckless lending here, and it's become a serious issue. Have I got this correct or not?
You have got it absolutely correct. There are two sides to the story. There's the reckless borrower and the reckless lender, and we know the consequences of each. There has to be protection for the borrower, no doubt about it, and those who recklessly lend have to be held to account. But at the end of the day, you have to remain responsible for the debts that you incur. And it's our view that interest rate caps should be increased somewhat. There are other things if you read the detail there. But also if you have a look, the fees were actually introduced in 2007. There has been no increase in caps on fees and services since then. The rate of inflation has been cumulatively 54%. and then there have been increased costs of compliance costs. So we would think that for the majority of products, and it would have to be looked at carefully, you need about 100% increase in fees.
Okay. I'm going to have to leave it there. Rob Jeffery, MD and Senior Economist at Econometrix, thanks indeed for the explanation.
Pleasure.